What's up, guys? Welcome in. It is Saturday, January 14th. Meant to get this thing out to you guys yesterday, and then this morning, and then it just kind of worked out this way. This is another draft episode of the Bark and Brown Show. I'm your host, Jacob at Riches and 13. As always, we are brought to you by our friends over at Homage Apparel. I'm actually rocking some Cavs gear today. We got the Let 'em Know Cavaliers shirt going on. I also have the Throw the Hammer Down shirt, a couple brown shirts. I'll put a link in the description down below, but I'm telling you guys, Homage is the best. I mean, not only is it great looking apparel, it's just incredibly soft and comfortable. And trust me, you wanna get yourself hooked up with some Homage apparel today. So we're gonna dive right into it this week. This is Mock Draft 3.0. So if you are new here, please hit that subscribe button, give that thumbs up here on the YouTube. If you would like to check out some of the other stuff, I have 2 more mock drafts up already, as well as some individual videos on defensive tackles, wide receivers, and I think we did linebackers. And then next week, we're going to get a little bit more specific with edge defenders. I believe Casey Kinnaman from Dog Pound Daily will join me for that. So I'm joined each week by a guest when we do the specific position rooms. And then, of course, here by myself with these mock drafts, which will come every couple of weeks. So I'll have draft up for you guys every week, as well as around Sunday or Tuesdays. I plan to continue to put up Q&As. So we're doing some Q&As. There's a place in the community tab if you want to ask some questions there, some Browns questions. You can ask them there as well as over on YouTube. So let's dive right on into it. I'm trying to do some of these a little bit differently kind of as we go through so we can hit on as many prospects so you guys are all familiar with as many prospects as possible before we get to April's draft. I want to preface this by saying the areas I think they attack in free agency, because that greatly dictates how this mock draft plays out. I think a starter is added on the defensive line at both interior and exterior. Someone like Arden Key on the edge, maybe a couple. I don't know. I still don't. I want Deron Payne, but I still don't know that they'll even let him out for that to even be a possibility that Washington will even put it in a position for him to get out. But we'll see. Maybe some starters. Starting defensive tackle, starting edge. I think absolutely is already on the team before you go to the draft. So I kind of preface that because I start out at pick number 42 with Antonio Johnson, the safety from Texas A&M. And I know I've put some safeties out there. I really love JL Skinner as well. He's probably my draft crush this year's Alex Wright. And so I know it's a lot, but Antonio Johnson falls here to the safety position. I love him a lot because I like him a lot because of the versatility, man. Like, he is a true deep safety. I think he plays really well. He follows the quarterback's eyes really well. He diagnoses what's going on in front of him very quickly, processes it. He has athleticism and speed to react to it. But he also plays in the slot. He also plays in the box. I think he is best at a deep safety, and I think the Browns absolutely, if they add a safety in the draft or anywhere, are going to look for a true deep free safety style player, and I think Johnson can be that. But also in a pinch, if you got 5 wide and you want to put him in the slot and man up and you want to play a bunch of DBs, I think Johnson can do that because the versatility can play on each level. I think you say, okay, I want you to be my third safety. I want you to be my deep safety over the top. But sometimes if I bring on another safety, I'll put you up in the box and that sort of thing. And I think it's very important. And if you watch the way the Browns have kind of done things over the last few years, they do target players that can do, more than one thing well. And I think Antonio Johnson falls right into that category. Moving on to pick 98, I got Lucas Van Ness. Some people call him a defensive interior player, but he's more of an edge player from Iowa. He can, again, another player can play inside, outside. Has some really good inside tape, but I do think ultimately in the NFL he'll be an outside edge rusher. Very similar to both Alex Wright and, Jadeveon Clowney and Myles Garrett, where they're best on the outside, but you could slide him in. You could be a stand-up linebacker over the center. And Lucas Van Ness has a very, very clear calling card. That dude is strong. He is going to push the pocket better than some players that I've, evaluated. I'm going to bring up some of my notes on Lucas Van Ness because I have them written down here. Because, so I watched Lucas Van Ness a couple of weeks ago, and first thing I wrote down was one word: powerful. He pushes the pocket, and he uses his hands pretty well. So really good hand placement, pushes the pocket in a good way. And if you put him on the interior, that'll prevent these quarterbacks that were able to just step up and slide out because of the defensive tackles getting owned this year by the Browns, and they didn't have to worry always about Myles Garrett or whoever was on the other side because they knew it was going to be so weak in the middle they could just step up and slide out. And I think Van Ness, if he is rushing from the interior, really prevents that. He's got the inside-outside versatility. Sometimes I think he relies a little bit too much on the strength in his bull rush. I think he needs to develop more moves, and he's got the speed and athleticism to use some of that speed to power stuff, but he really just relies on his calling card, which is that strength. And listen, it's a really nice calling card to rely on. He does have a good swim move that he uses a little bit, but that's another thing I think that he needs to work on, those finesse moves, those athletic moves, because he's got the bull rushing down just fine. He's got a really good motor, man. Van Ness is not giving up on plays, and there were some issues with that in the Cleveland Browns defense this year. So he's definitely a player on the interior that you put in there, and it fixes some of those a lot of the concerns and the interior and the exterior. But I do think he's a better outside. So for purposes of this mock draft, I'll call him an edge player. All right, moving on to pick 110, Marvin Mims, a wide receiver out of Oklahoma. Back-to-back years, Oklahoma wide receivers. I talked about this on the wide receiver episode of the Barking Brown shows. We've gone through these draft videos. If you're on YouTube, there is a playlist that is just draft videos, so you can check that out to be able to, more convenient for you guys. Explosive, that's the word. He's explosive out of the slot. I think he can play some outside wide receiver, but I think primarily he'll be in the slot, which is great. That's what the Browns need. Again, you're looking at good players, good fit, best player on the board, moving on. That's what I'm looking at. Talent, fit, needs. If I can find those three things all wrapped up together, then you find a perfect prospect. Again, that's where I'm at Marvin Mims if he falls to 110 in this. He's got reliable hands. I'm not concerned about him making easy catches. He's a little undersized, so some of those contested catch opportunities against some of the bigger DBs or linebackers may be issues, but he's got that speed where if they're going to match him up with a linebacker, I'm not worried about a contested catch because he's going to separate. He produces plenty of separation. He's literally just the missing key that they didn't have this year, and he does it from a spot in the slot where they don't have a true defined slot wide receiver. So you say, oh, okay, well, that's great. He goes in, he lines up where we need someone to line up, and he does what we need him to do, and is be explosive and fast. And he creates so much after the catch in the open field, and he's just very slippery. So I think he's a great athlete. I think, some of the size concerns and durability potentially because of his size going into the next level. Maybe where he falls a little bit in this draft, but should he fall to 110 in the Browns, I think they would sprint that card up to the podium and make that pick. All right, we're going to move right on to pick 129 for your Cleveland Browns. And now I'll admit in these mock drafts I'm not doing trades, but we're going to get here in a couple of picks to where I think the Browns may potentially try to add some more assets. I think this player is a lot better than what this mock simulator, and I use the NFL mock draft database on this one. I think this player is a lot better than this. I think I kind of have him maybe as a second round player. He's definitely a day 2 prospect for me. But in this case, he fell, and so I'm just going with the way things fall sometimes, and it's Byron Young, the defensive tackle from Alabama. He's got some of the best hands in this draft. Listen, if you're looking for everything the Browns didn't have in a defensive tackle last year, that is what you would get in Byron Young. I think he is as close of a 3-down defensive tackle that you're going to find in this draft outside of like Jalen Carter, who's going to go in the top 5, probably the top 2 or 3. So I think you look at Byron Young, he just uses his hands beautifully, sheds blocks beautiful. He pushes the pocket. He's got speed. He's got strength. I just think he's an all-around player. I'm really not sure why he's falling in the draft like this because I think he's got all the tools. And maybe some people think he's a little bit unrefined and that he needs to add a little bit more polish to his game, maybe so. But I just think he's got a great size-speed combination. And if somehow the Browns have an opportunity to draft Byron Young, even if it's in the second round and they have him that high, I think he potentially has that level of talent to go anywhere between the second and the 5th round, just depending on pick your poison. And I think he would be a home run draft at any point for the Cleveland Browns. Now, before I hit the final 4 picks, I'm going to step away for just a second, our only break here of the episode, while Tyler tells us a little bit more about our friends over at, I can't find it. No, never mind. We're not taking a break. We're rolling through. Roll through, no breaks. So coming up right now, the Browns have picks 140 and 142. I do think there's a possibility that, pick 129 where they take Byron Young in this mock. I think potentially 140 and 142 could be used to go up from 129 to try to go get somebody should they fall. Or 140 or 142 ends up being a trade situation to get a higher draft pick next year potentially. But you know how they like to accumulate assets. So pick 140, Owen Popo, the linebacker from Auburn. I talked about him a couple of weeks ago. Might have been last week actually that we were talking about linebackers. And let me pull up my notes on him. Everything's written down in the same notebook, so I have to go through it. So he is older. But we're getting into that borderline where Andrew Berry's willing to kind of bend on some of those as we're well into day 3 of the NFL draft right now. In this situation, I think he could do that. So I really like him. He's a Mike linebacker, an inside linebacker. He's got really nice size speed combination. He reacts really quickly. He diagnoses what's going on in front of him. Most of the time he does it pretty well, and he has the athleticism and reaction to be able to, this is a run play. It's going here, react, go hit the ball, find the ball. He can get caught flat-footed. I think that he doesn't necessarily keep his feet moving. He doesn't chop his feet or anything like that when the play starts. So you're going to have him kind of there in position. I think he reacts really well. However, if it's some sort of misdirection or a really explosive play out of the backfield with a really fast, explosive player, he may get caught flat-footed, and that put him just a step behind, and ends up being a much better play than what it should have been. I think he's really good in space, though, in terms of tackling. I think he breaks down fundamentally, breaks down as a tackler, keeps his base. He doesn't get off balance. He doesn't lean one way or another, and he just doesn't miss tackles. I think he's really good fundamental tackler, and based on what happened in 2022, that's enough. That trait right there is enough for me to draft you on day 3 for the Browns, because we lacked a lot of fundamentally disciplined players, especially at the in tackling on the front level of the defense. So it's right there, I wrote that down. I was like, yeah, that's good enough. We can move on from that player. But no, I think he's a pretty good player, a little inconsistent at times, but overall, I think he would be a really nice addition. Moving on to pick 142, Wayne Morris, the tackle from Oklahoma. Okay, so this is where it starts getting interesting when we start having this conversation about linemen with the Cleveland Browns coming up. And that is, do they want to tackle, do they want a center, or do they want a guard? Or do they, a lot of times those guard-center combos. But what is it they're going to attack? Because a lot of it centers around does Ethan Posick come back? Do they roll with Nick Harris? Do they like Dawson Deaton, who also tore his ACL in their 7th-round pick last year? Where are they going to go? Do they like James Hudson? Are they going to re-sign Chris Hubbard? I ended up falling here with Wayne Morris because he has played tackle, but some are projecting him at the next level to be a guard. Now, he starts in Tennessee where he plays left tackle, has a couple years there, transfers to Oklahoma, where he started at right tackle. So he's made starts at left tackle. He's made starts at right tackle. Some people are projecting him at the next level to be a guard. And that being said, I'll take all of that in Cleveland, because I think they could draft a tackle, a guard, a center, whatever. But I think he's got, over 300 pounds, 6'4". He reminds you a lot of a player that has played. He's a little bit more polished than James Hudson, but he is still a guy with a bunch of really nice physical tools that just hasn't put it all together. But he has a mean streak. He's a nasty mauler type player. He's that kind of lineman that the Browns love in the run game. And I think with Bill Callahan can take this guy that has shown flashes at left tackle, flashes at right tackle, has the size and kind of short arms to play guard. We don't know where he's going to be, but I think a lineman that could fit in anywhere along the line for the most part. Browns need some depth coming out of this draft at linemen to also save some money with all the money they have given out to the linemen that they're already on the roster. We move on to our second to last pick, 189, Tyjae Spears, the running back from Tulane. Now, this is another situation where you're drafting a smaller school player. And I know that Andrew Berry has pretty well avoided some of those, so I can understand why people might be like, all right, I don't think he'll go that route. And that's fine, but he was on the board, and I like Tyjae a lot. A little bit undersized, 5'10", 190 at the running back position. Didn't play but 7 games his first 2 years at Tulane. Last couple of years at Tulane, he had 1,000 scrimmage yards in 2021 with 9 touchdowns. He had 1,800 scrimmage yards this year in 21 touchdowns for Tulane here in 2022. I saw that stat when I was looking some things up and watching some of his tape, and I'm like, 21 touchdowns. Like, and 19 of them are rushing touchdowns, mind you, because he only had 2 receiving touchdowns on 22 catches. Last year, 2021, averaged 6.7 yards per carry, 6.9 yards per carry this year to go along with 11.6 yards per catch this season. So he finished with 1,837 1,837 scrimmage yards, 7.3 yards per play, and 21 touchdowns. Okay. Small school. He's going to come in here to be a third string running back. He returned like 2 kicks in college. So maybe you do some stuff like that with like you did with Jerome Ford, and you pull Jerome Ford off of it because he's probably your backup running back. So you're looking at this thing. It's like we're starting to draft traits. We're going to draft guys that have some college production late in the draft, and we're just going to take a chance on guys that may not make the roster, but they've shown something on tape that you like. And I think that's what Tyjae Spears gives you. Final pick, 231 in the 7th round, Catrell Clark, the cornerback from Louisville. I think there's a good chance the Browns will always draft a safety or a corner, and potentially always draft a corner. And I have absolutely no problems with that. Always get DBs, always get more linemen. You can never have enough of them. He has 4 interceptions the past 2 yards, 1 for a touchdown this year, 9 pass defense last year, 4 pass defense this year. He had a fumble recovery. They returned for a touchdown, 59 yards this year as well. So he has 2 college touchdowns to go with the 5 interceptions. 1 sack this year, 4 tackles for loss. You're just looking at a guy, nice size, speed, length. He's 5'10", but he is undersized size-wise, really long, but at 165 pounds, the major durability concerns for a corner, a defensive player here. But he's got some speed and some athleticism, and like I said, the size in terms of 5'10", the length, real long arms, very long player, kind of similar to like the way you look at Evan Mobley. He's not nearly that long, obviously, but you look at Evan Mobley, he's longer than everybody else. I think Clark is longer than everybody else for the most part on the corner position. Well, guys, that's it for me this week. That is Mock Draft 3.0. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you do like, what you didn't like. I'll be back on, I think we've got a Q&A. I think the Q&A is going to come out on Tuesday morning. Go check that out. We'll do Q&A videos all off season long, draft videos all off season long. We'll hit edge players next week. If you want to help the all of us over here, help me and the creators at Network 216, you can go to our Patreon, patreon.com/network_216, and pledge the $5 donation to us every month, and it helps us, continue to make great content for you guys. The most valuable thing, you can give somebody some of your time. So I appreciate you guys giving some of yours to us. That's all I've got for this week. Love you guys. We'll see you next week. As always, go Browns.